Welcome to Behind the Investigation with Atlanta News First Investigates. I'm Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe, and I'm joined now by Investigator Sierra Cummings. Hi, Sierra.
Good afternoon. Hi, Brendan.
So if you're listening to us on the podcast or watching us here on streaming, today we are talking about a teacher shortage. This isn't unique to Georgia. It's been an ongoing problem, and it is hitting right here at home. Tell us about what the teachers are facing and the communities as they're trying to find competent educators with short supply.
We hear about the shortages across all industries all the time now, especially post-pandemic. But I figured let's do a fresh take on what that means and what that looks like in Georgia, specifically Metro Atlanta. So, we went through all of the data. We had been hearing this narrative across the country that teachers were either quitting their jobs, not returning to work, that there were massive shortages. So we just wanted to get that micro view here in our local area. Unfortunately, the data confirmed what the national narrative was, that we did have a massive teacher shortage here in Metro Atlanta, but I wanted to tell it through a different lens. We've got all these districts that are in this period of trying to hire more educators. So what can they do? Well, we went to the teachers who said, obviously, there's got to be more money, but there is this expectation of increased workloads and benchmarks and testing that teachers have had to experience the last couple of years too. So we look at that, but really the overarching portion of this story is about working to teach. We found out that a lot of our teachers in Metro Atlanta are taking on second jobs because teaching alone just isn't enough for them. So you think about the teacher shortages and how much harder it's going to be now for districts to fill these roles, because our current teachers are like, man, post-pandemic, this money, my financial situation is just in disarray. So here is working to teach.
If I was doing something else that maybe I didn't like as much or wasn't as passionate about, money wouldn't be a thing.
Danielle Cummings can often be found in her car, when not in her DeKalb County classroom. Although she started teaching 9 years ago, it was the past 2 that were different.
I started doing Uber and Lyft. As a teacher, unfortunately, we're still waiting on the end of the month and the 15th. And I mean, that's sad, but that's a constant thought.
That's her bi-weekly pay cycle for the DeKalb County School District. Danielle takes on extra jobs from ride sharing to photography whenever and wherever she can. By no means did Danielle expect to get rich from teaching.
You're passionate about your work.
However, the benchmark expectations and testing challenges have exponentially changed the workload for Georgia educators. The pay has not.
A rubber band can only stretch so much, before it breaks. And the money doesn't compare to the work you do at all by a long shot.
In 2020, the state passed its largest teacher pay raise in Georgia's history, an 8% increase according to this legislative report. But that only came after there were no pay raises from 2015 to 2019. The National Education Association's latest study found average educator pay failed to keep up with inflation, claiming currently teachers are making $3,644 less per year than they did 10 years ago, adjusted for inflation. That same report ranks Georgia as the 41st in the nation for average teacher starting salary, not even $40,000. A second job, the only solution for some, an issue Danielle says district and state leaders need to know.
Do you think if they knew that reality, they would want to do something about it?
I would hope so.
We're not serious about education in this state.
Teachers Union President Verdalia Turner.
Most people, and I hate to say this, in their right mind would not even seek to teach.
As the leader for Georgia's chapter of the American Federation of Teachers, or AFT, Turner surveyed her local members. She says the majority now have side hustles.
Teachers are tired. They are waitresses. They do Uber. Some of them are receptionists. Many of them work in stands at stadiums. I've met teachers who actually clean houses. Teachers do all sorts of jobs in order to just try to make ends meet.
But the union also notes is why some are leaving the profession altogether. Atlanta News First investigates analyzed data for teacher shortages across the metro. The last 4 years, vacancies climbed to triple digits. This year, Clayton County has the greatest need, 178 educator positions unfulfilled. Just after it, DeKalb County with 120 vacancies. Numbers unlikely to change without stronger pay incentives.
It's just necessary in this economy.
It could be tiresome and exhausting because like you want to go in there, refresh, you want to go in there, being able to give your all and from a full cup. So you want to be able to, do that.
Sierra, you mean to tell me that school teachers have no other choice but to essentially be Uber drivers? So imagine you have a master's degree or even a higher degree than that. There are PhDs driving Uber because they can't afford to pay their bills.
It was really shocking to me, but what was more shocking was after we interviewed Danielle Cummings, who has been an Uber driver, a Lyft driver, a DoorDasher, all of the rideshare stuff. After we interviewed her, we then took our concerns to the local teachers union, and they're known by the Georgia Federation of Teachers. When we went to them, the president said, yeah, actually, most of the teachers in our union are not just Uber and Lyft drivers, but they're receptionists. They work in stadiums. They do all these things. They work in hotels. They're cleaning homes. And that was jaw-dropping too, not because there isn't a level of respect with any of those fields. We respect all of those industries, but we love our teachers. And you always hear people talk about how teaching is a ministry and our teachers do so much. I mean, beyond just being at the classroom front board and grading papers, they're making sure students are properly clothed, giving them food. They're just everything all in one. And to really accept the idea that they shouldn't be able to pay their bills just because they're teachers, it's frustrating. And the reality is so true for so many of our Metro Atlanta educators. And it's budget season right now, so hopefully the people in positions of power look at this story, hear from teachers like Danielle, and say maybe there is some more of a financial incentive we can give at the local level. And we talked about it in the story. There is some kind of state increase that's going to come down should Governor Kemp sign that the new budget for our entire state. They will get the $2,500 increase in their salaries each year.
Which brings the minimum to what?
Not a lot, because the entry level for Georgia teachers, I believe it was like $38,000. Yeah. So if you're at that entry level, I'm so bad at math, but you tell me, Brendan, 38 plus 2,500.
We're just above 40,000. Yeah. But if you have a family of 4 and you're the sole breadwinner, you qualify for food stamps as a teacher in Georgia.
Yeah.
And that's extraordinary. When also, by the way, we want you to have at least at minimum a college degree.
Oh my God. Yeah.
If not a master's. And then one of the things I noticed we've seen in other stories is that teachers are very often teaching in subjects that for which they're not even fully educated. And it's not their fault. It's because of the teacher shortage. So you might have a science teacher that has no science education or other, specialty areas. One other thing I want to ask you about is about how we have asked our teachers to be so much more than teachers. You just kind of alluded to it, that teachers are social workers. Yeah. Teachers are essentially, they're basically the social side of the contract. We have the police side, which is enforcement, and then we have this sort of, the only direct interaction between
kind of like a first responder. It's not far-fetched to say that.
That's
with some of these families.
They're first responders. We ask them to do so much, and then there's all these requirements. You mentioned testing. There's also, some of them have IEPs, individualized education programs. If you add up all of the hours they're supposed to give special instruction to IEP students, there aren't enough hours in the day. And then the other thing is supplies. We've done those stories for years. They don't even... they have to buy their own supplies with their own money or ask for donations from parents because they simply can't. I mean, the idea that the schools don't provide crayons, they don't provide paper, so the teachers, can you imagine if they asked us to buy our own microphones and cameras to come work here at Atlanta News First Investigates? I'm going to get off my soapbox because there isn't a question in there, but do you find it frustrating covering this? Because it is a calling, but at some point you shouldn't have to pay to answer that calling to teach our children.
Yeah, and in many ways, it's not new. It's just the reality has presented itself in new ways over the last year. But, we looked at the data for the last 10 plus years, and we showed you there that back in 2020, the state did pass its largest pay increase for teachers, but that was after like 4 years of not passing a state increase for our teachers. So it's not a new phenomenon, but it's just presenting new challenges. And Danielle said it best in this story. It's almost as if the expectations and the workload has increased while the pay has not. She said something that was so powerful to me. She's like, I'm trying to figure out when to do this test. There's the benchmark text, there's the stuff at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, the middle of the year, the quarterly stuff, the state stuff, the district stuff. I'm trying to figure out when do I have time to teach?
Yeah, emails from teacher or from parents. You've got two groups. You've got the parents who aren't involved at all, who need to be, and then you've got the parents that are helicopter parents. I mean, I don't know how they do it. We've received emails from our public school teachers for our daughter. You know, we've received emails at 11:30 at night.
Wow.
And you're saying, okay, you have to be up early in the morning and you're still working. I mean, they're not getting compensated for those hours.
They're not, but we are fortunate for the teachers and the educators like Danielle Cummings and the support that they have with our local teacher associations. But I mean, it sounds so cliche, so trying to say something has got to change, and we'll be looking. We know that Fulton County School System, they have their next budget meeting this upcoming week, and so we'll see what happens. They're going to be looking at all these pay incentives and other incentives to hire on teachers, keep them on, but also make sure they don't have to work to be an educator.
Yeah, and then one last thing is how our schools have become sort of a battleground in the culture wars and the political wars. You know, it's cliche, but there's that old bumper sticker, if you can read this, thank a teacher. You know, it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
That we ask so much of them. One other thing, you and I discussed this when you were first working on the story, even though there is that minimum pay that the legislature, that the General Assembly passed for teachers, some districts can and do pay them more, correct?
Yeah, they do, because it is competitive. If you have a district that has 300 plus positions you got to fill, you're going to be trying to figure out how you can hike that pay up. So the districts can do what they want to do, and we hope they want to do more.
And private can pay more.
Yeah.
And so they do. Yeah, that's very interesting. Sierra Cummings, another insightful investigation. And I know you're going to stay on this because sadly this issue is not going away. But that's what we do here at Behind the Investigation and Atlanta News First Investigates. We expose these systemic and institutional failures so they can get fixed. And Sierra's got a new law under her belt this year and perhaps maybe another one in the next session. You've been watching Behind the Investigation. I'm Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe. You can stream us wherever you get your podcasts. Take us with you on your drive, or you can watch us on YouTube or Atlanta News First Plus. We'll see you next time.